Here's a interesting figure for you, Paul
Mm-hmm.
Thurrott.
Mm-hmm.
Ready for this one? So, assuming that the Activision deal closes,
Mm-hmm.
word out on the street this morning is that Microsoft's also looking to put about $10 billion into OpenAI, which is the company or
Right.
organization
That's
behind ChatGPT, which
Mm-hmm.
means in 2023, Microsoft will be spending about $80 billion betting on its future.
Yeah, this is well. First of all, I think it has that in cash or cash-like assets.
As of September 30th, 2022, they had 107 billion in cash
There you
on
go.
hand.
Yeah, so we might look back at this as Satya's folly. We might back at this as the smartest investment in a downturn ever made, and something that positions them for the future, right? So there's no way to know that. But it might be interesting to compare that to the amount of money that Intel is spending building physical facilities to build chipsets. I think Intel ultimately is spending more than 80 billion, and of course, Microsoft bought Figma. There's other things. I mean, Microsoft over the course of this time period, I'm sure will spend well over $100 billion on an investment. We'll call it investment. So, which one of those do you think is going to pay off more? I mean, I don't think anyone doubts that Microsoft's going to be around in 10, 20 years, whatever. Intel, it's sort of a question mark, right? I mean,
there's more variableness to the Intel
but also
side.
it's just this kind of relative size of the companies, right? I mean, in an Intel best case scenario, let's say they completely win the PC. They do it. They nail it. Qualcomm's knocked off. AMD for some reason doesn't become anything big. They win. They still own like this little slice of the market, right? I mean, it can't just be PCs. And I don't see a way forward for them in mobile chipsets or in IoT or in, well, data centers, I guess maybe, cloud perhaps. But AMD's doing pretty well there. And let's face it, well, I mean, for Intel to continue success in the data center, they have to move their their hybrid chipsets designs into that market, right? ARM style, I was going to say.
I actually think their growth potential isn't tied to their own chips. I think it's how they're building this stuff out, and it's the capacity to build other companies'
become like
chips.
a TMSC. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, it's like, I want to use your factory to build combustion engines in an era in which we're all switching to electric vehicles.
Right.
Is what that kind of feels like. I mean, not to be a jerk about it, but companies are talking right now or are using, I think 4 nanometer is a thing now. They're talking about 3 too, obviously. They're going down. I mean, what is Intel building? 7 at best? 10? I don't know. Look, like, I don't want Intel to fail. I honestly.
Yeah, no, the industry, it'd be bad for the industry if
not even just that. I mean, I like Intel. Just personally, I mean, for all the problems I've had with like 12th gen chipsets with hubs and docks and stuff this year, I mean, honestly, aside from that, it's like saying, aside from that flat tire I keep getting, my car's been great. I mean, I like Intel. Like, I think, I mean, the PC needs Intel. They need multiple players pushing each other, And we'll see. Do you really want have you looked at Qualcomm? Do you want these guys running the show?
No, I mean, we've seen what they've done in mobile, and that's fine.
Oh my God.
Let's just leave them in mobile.
How long can we be second rate?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff, though.
It is. I think the AI bet from Microsoft will be the better bet, honestly, compared up against Activision.
Oh, interesting. It certainly feels like a better return on investment.
Yeah, maybe that's a better way to phrase it.
Yeah.
Better return. Potential return, I should say.
Right. Smaller investment, bigger potential yields, maybe.
Because let's pretend, Paul, that Activision returns $2 billion a year in just straight bottom line profit.
Okay.
They would need 35 years to recover that investment.
Yeah. Well, but that's not really the point, right?
No, I know. They're overpaying for a specific reason. But
Yeah. To me, the bigger deal with Activision Blizzard, and the thing I think that gets lost in the conversation, because everyone talks about Call of Duty. Microsoft is like, no, it's about mobile, Yeah. But Activision's biggest franchises, and Call of Duty is the poster child for that. These things I mean, a small team can push out a mobile game pretty easily. This thing is like making a Hollywood blockbuster and doing it to date every year. I know they're going to get off of that treadmill finally, but this is a big production, you know? It's kind of like none of the benefits of like software margins with all of the problems of hardware margins, right? I mean, it's like the new Avatar movie. Like this thing had to make $2 billion or something supposedly to be profitable, right? Once you factor in all the marketing costs and all that. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's that kind of thing. Like you're not just investing in a company, you're investing in a company that makes these freaking huge games that cost a lot of money to make, take a lot of time, and are really problematic when one of them doesn't do super, super well, because any other game franchise would take the sales of like Vanguard and be like happy with that, ecstatic. But for Call of Duty, that's a disaster.
Yep.
And that could happen pretty freaking easily, you know? So anyway, it is an interesting problem. I mean, obviously I'm sure Microsoft went to Activision and was like, hey, can we have your mobile business? And they were like, no. You got to take the whole thing. You know, I'm sure that conversation happened. Right?
Yeah. Either way, we'll see if Microsoft closes the round with OpenAI and see how that continues to go. But
yeah,
it's got to be a little bit of a slap in the face too if you're working inside Microsoft and you're working on AI stuff and you're like, oh yeah, they're betting against our own internal efforts. But
yeah, I don't know how that works. So on a smaller level, that type of thing happens all the time, right? Microsoft will make some acquisition. The team or the product they're working on or whatever is whatever markets it's in. And inside Microsoft, there's this group that's like, hello, like we're doing that too. It's like, well, you got to figure it out, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, I didn't do a complete breakdown of this. This stuff I didn't even look at briefly, for example, like GitHub Copilot, but there were a lot of efforts inside of Microsoft around AI. And let's face it, Microsoft has been pretending everything is AI for the past, I don't know, 7 years or something. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of Microsoft research, obviously, but also within the product groups. There's a lot of teams that are kind of in this, kind of fall into that part of the circle in the Venn diagram or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it seems like they want to bring this stuff. I'm sure what Microsoft really wants is OpenAI. You know what I mean?
Oh, I think if this investment goes through as rumored, by the end of it, I think they end up owning something like half.
Yeah, it's 49% exactly. So which is kind of like non-controlling share of the company. But it's 49%. And yeah, but I mean, I think what they want is they want it, right? Like the current deal, the $1 billion deal is that Microsoft is the kind of go-to-market choice for whatever products or services come out of this thing that led to Chat GPT, I think, whatever that's called. But the general goal is to develop what they called, remember, general artificial intelligence, which to me at the time was a brand new term. I'd never really heard that, but I think what they really want to do is add this technology to everything they're doing, and that's how they're going to differentiate themselves.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense for Word, like the implementation that we see today out of Chat GPT or whatever.
Yeah. You
Makes
know what else too?
For Word.
I think this. I don't know if we talked about this yesterday. I mentioned this a little bit in the article I wrote yesterday, but we used to talk about like these smart assistant things, like a lot. And like when Microsoft came up with Cortana and Windows Phone originally, the idea was like this is eventually going to just push all the way through the stack. It did. You know, they added it to Windows 10. There's a developer platform, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. Like I sort of feel like most people were like, yeah, okay. I mean, and some people kind of benefit from it. I think that type of thing makes more sense on non-PC devices, frankly. But I think with AI, you hear what they're doing or what they might be doing. You're like, yeah, like this actually makes. I feel like there's less doubting this time. You know, you're like, well, maybe VR, AR, whatever. You're like, yeah, maybe. You know, what about like smart? Yeah, maybe. Maybe Microsoft can make an IoT play. Maybe.
Here's a real world scenario that we've used or I've used. So obviously you work at Stardock and we have a product called Start 11. If you go to Chat GPT right now, if you say write a Python script that will alert me every time Start 11 is mentioned on a specific subreddit, it will create a script and then tell you how to install and run it so that it will use the API from Reddit to alert you when there is a mention of a like this is it
Well,
writes
you
the whole
understand
script.
what you just described as something that obliterates Power Automate,
Right.
right? Because this is, yeah, God, we don't have enough. This show isn't big enough to talk about this. Like, this takes too much time. But like, I go back long enough to remember like stupid stuff that Microsoft did back in the day. Like, I don't mean PowerShell stupid, but this idea that like the typical administrator is going to become a programmer, a .NET programmer, so they can automate things, right? Or products like Visual Studio Lighthouse that kind of came and went, or what we're talking about right now, like the Power Platform. Like, yes. Well, first of all, if this then that existed before, but Microsoft needs that thing, kind of using graphical building blocks to write most of an automation script, essentially, that's graphical. You can click on it and it happens, whatever. It still requires a certain level of skill. It still requires some technical expertise. It's not as hard as writing a C# program or whatever, but it's not as easy as what you just said. You just say it.
And there's still a hurdle because, like, I know I need VS Code. I know that I need certain, like, when it says, like, it doesn't tell you what packages you need. And so, like, it would just say, like, include package or whatever. And I know what that means. So it's still not there yet. But, man, that is, like, that it kicks out that script in 5 seconds. And then it takes me
it's the beginning of it, right?
20, 30 minutes to get set up.
Yeah, you said, write me a Perl script that does something.
Python. But, yeah.
Python. I'm sorry, Python. Really what a human being would say is, I need to tell me, you speak to the computer. Or maybe type it in. Tell me anytime that whatever the thing you said was, start 11 is mentioned on Reddit. I don't care what you do to do that on the back end. I just want it to happen. I want to see a notification on my computer or on my phone or whatever it is. And nobody cares what type of script it is, or that there's a script, or that it uses some APIs. It doesn't, like, that's what it does. And I honestly, getting from what you said to that's the easy part. They're already doing the hard part. You know what I mean? So anyway, this stuff is fascinating. And I don't know. I think in our industry, we always hear about the next big thing every year, whatever it is. And you're like, yeah, whatever. And then a year later, you're like, hey, remember we all thought that was the next thing? Like, oh, we were so stupid back then. This is the next big thing.
Here's my prediction, Paul Thurrott. I think Build and Google I/O are going to be more interesting this year than potentially in previous years. I think Google at I/O is probably under pressure to show its version. Now, granted, Google's been doing this stuff for a while. Like, they had the Google Assistant that could call and make reservations for you and that sort of stuff. So it's not like Google's out on the sideline. They're just not pumping it out into the market yet.
Google is going through a marketing exercise right now where they're kind of de-emphasizing the assistant part of it and more emphasizing their core platform, which is Android, right? But it doesn't really matter. It's just like the thing we talked about with Microsoft. Like, this stuff exists in the stack. Cortana as a brand might be largely gone right now. It's not in Windows anymore.
Yep.
But the technologies that drove that thing on the back end, the integration with the Microsoft Graph and all that stuff that happens across the stack is still there.
They just announced the service yesterday, or demoed a service yesterday, where you could have it replicate your voice effectively.
That's right. I have that put aside to look at that. Apparently 3 words. Yeah, that's what you need, is a bot with my voice chattering like an idiot, like I'm doing right now.
I think I found a way to make this podcast a little bit more efficient.
Right. We can do both our voices. We can take
that's what I mean.
It'll be great. What did we talk about today? It will be entertaining for us.
If we ever look like this,
it's just
like you'll know what.
It's like a thing it's just a picture of our face on a stick.
Why are they wearing sunglasses on the podcast now?
It's like, during the show, the tape fails, so the face falls over, and you just see your background. I look forward to this future.